Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Mind, Your Reality, Your Results, a weekly live show where I speak with an expert in the subject of mindset so you can change your mindset and ultimately get the amazing results that you want in your life. I'm so pleased to be welcoming Christina to the show today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, I'm excited for today. In case we haven't met before, my name is Leah Fink. I'm the owner and founder of All Thrive, and I help protect people from the pain of damaged relationships. If you're curious about that, I would love to connect, so please reach out. But you're obviously not just here for my expertise today, you're here for Christina, so please take advantage of it. Feel free to leave your questions and comments, even if you're watching us and we're no longer live. If you put those comments in the box, we can make sure to get back to you with answers. So, Christina, as I love to start out here, do you want to share a little bit about how you became a soul coach and how you got here today?
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here, and it's always a joy to chat with you. So I love this
Thank you.
platform that you're sharing your knowledge and expertise and welcoming other experts and share to allow us to share our knowledge. So thank you. I appreciate you. And I am Christina Stuart. I am a soul coach, a giggler extraordinaire, and an award-winning photojournalist that I've traveled all over the world. And one of my passions is people. I love meeting people. I love talking with people, and I love hearing their stories. So that helps in my photography, and it also helps in my coaching because I genuinely care about people and their well-being. And I have some trauma in my background, and so I've always been very open about sharing my sexual trauma experiences, as well as a domestic violence situation that I dealt with an ex-boyfriend. And because I've always been open in sharing my experiences, partly because I want other people to know they're not alone. And so all of that and all of the work that I've done personally in my healing led me to a specific modality called soul language. And I was using it as a modality for myself. It's a meditative, spiritual, connected process, and just helped me to expand my connection to the ether, to the world, to spirituality, and myself. I learned so much about who I am, and it really helped me understand who I am in my healing process. And I loved it so much, I actually became a certified practitioner in it after using the modality for about 2 years. I expanded into the training to become a certified practitioner, and then finished that very beginning of 2020, like the end of January 2020. And we know how 2020 went. So people were really, it's a modality that helps us to introduce you to your soul's purpose, and I help them live a life in alignment with that purpose. So when the pandemic hit and quarantine and we're all freaking out and the world is just going crazy, a lot of people were losing their jobs, their relationships were changing, their parenting styles were having to change because now they're stay-at-home moms and dads and homeschool teachers. And, it was, our whole world was just rocked upside down. And I kind of came out of my spiritual closet and started sharing more about this process, because in all of that, I didn't freak out. Like, I'm an event photographer, was my main source of income, and there were no more events. And I didn't freak out. Like, I own a house and a car, and I didn't worry about having to get the bills to pay my mortgage or eat or any of that. And so it was because of this process that I felt and I knew that I would be okay. And having that support and being able to offer that support to the world really is what created my coaching business. Now, I've always taught. I love sharing knowledge. I've taught photography pretty much since I picked up a camera. I taught at the college. I've done my own workshops. So that is a natural process for me, is sharing, my knowledge and expertise. And I want to see better pictures in the world. And so with the soul coaching, I want to see people live a life in alignment with their purpose and figure out what that is. And so once you do that, all the extraneous stuff that just isn't important and doesn't matter for your purpose naturally falls away. And so life is, you live a life that's more authentically you. And it's a beautiful thing to watch and support and see the amount of healing that happens for people and the different choices, the things that they manifest in their life, their mindset, is totally changed. And because they now understand what their purpose is, and start making the choices in alignment with that. And it just creates a really beautiful life. So yeah, I share that as much as I can. So it gives you a little bit of how I got here.
I love that, and thank you for sharing. And your early story is very powerful of what you went through and how you got through that. And what I was really thinking when you were relating it to the piece of early pandemic, you had you went through another tough time of no events for photography, and what a different mindset you had. Did that feel like a transition that you'd already started? Was it when you started your program that was the first change? I'm really curious about, because that's a huge transition, obviously.
Yeah, it is humongous. Absolutely. And I used to kind of call myself obnoxiously optimistic. And no, kind of no matter what, I'm going to look at the sunny, shiny side of things. And that isn't always the best way either, because we are faced with scary things, what we consider negative emotions. And just, putting our blinders on and pretending those don't exist isn't healthy either. And so, it really was a process in understanding that, yes, everything's going to be okay, that I am supported and loved and guided in some beautiful ways, and know how to use those ways that can benefit everybody, not just myself. And so just having seen that evidence and being aware, like just awareness, it was really the start for me, is to see that evidence of the life that I say that I want being brought to me. And so by acknowledging the evidence, more evidence shows up, right? The universe, God, source wants to give us more, because we're acknowledging it and saying, like, yeah, I see, these pennies, quarters, dimes I'm finding on the ground. If you say you want financial stability, and the universe is giving you this free money, and you're just like, oh, it's just pennies, what's the incentive to give you more, right? So by acknowledging, appreciating, and expressing that gratitude is really what started my mindset changing, and acknowledging the evidence. And then more evidence would show, and then I would kind of test that and say, well, I'm really good at seeing the evidence. I want instant evidence that I'm on the right track or not on the right track, because I didn't want to have all these detours anymore. And I really wanted to be in alignment as much as possible. And so I started seeing instant evidence. So just, yeah, that really helped the mindset. So by the time quarantine happened and the pandemic happened, I really was already in that, like, I know everything's going to be fine. Even with the world going crazy, I had been given clues along the way that something major was going to be happening, like 6, 8 months beforehand. Constant guidance that, like, just be prepared, something big is happening, something major is happening. And we are humans, and thinking in my own little small world of experience. And so when the quarantine happened, I was like, oh, that big. Like, it's not just about me, it's about the world. And so yes, I already was in that mindset of everything's going to be fine, because I've seen the evidence of it. And so I was already living in that mindset consistently, which really, really did help when the world went crazy. And that's also what I help support others find, is that ways of receiving that guidance and tapping into that purpose, and just, relaxing and into it, being easier with the transitions and that flow, really, really made a huge difference. And I had a lot of resistance before that, so I can relate to that as well.
Totally. Well, I mean, I love that. I love that as a it's not even a mentality. It almost feels like a way of being to you now.
It
And
really is, yeah.
yeah, I'm curious because if people looked at the title of this, talking about grief and joy and those harder emotions,
Mm.
I think sometimes people assume when you're going through and you're able to get through these challenges, it's because you're kind of hiding from them, or I don't want to say repressing, but
Mhm.
avoiding maybe a little bit. Whereas what you want to talk about was embracing. So how do those kind of sit together? This dichotomy of embrace and also be happy,
Yeah,
which people would see as
so
opposite.
this last year, beginning in June of 2021, I experienced 7 deaths in 9 months of close friends and family members. My aunt, cousin, and father were all in that group. And my aunt was a little bit more expected. She had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2019 and went through chemo, radiation surgery. I was very close with her. And so I was very involved in her process. And I was there the last 8 days of her life, including her last breath. And while I was with her those last 8 days, I also actually attended a friend's funeral who lived nearby. My aunt lived a few hours from me.
Yeah.
And just, it was this whirlwind of death that was surrounding me. And 0 of them were COVID related. Most of them were cancer. My cousin, my aunt's child, who was only 10 months younger than I am, died 8 days after she did of a massive heart attack. So very sudden, very unexpected. And that left my uncle alone. He has Parkinson's dementia. And so he needs 24-hour care. And the person who was going to be doing that and organizing that was my cousin, their only child, who was now dead. And so I am very, family is very important to me. And so even though, I mean, they've been married my whole life, 45 years, he's my uncle. So I stepped in as a caregiver and life manager, and that really kind of shifted my life in a whole different, unexpected way. And so going through those steps with grief, and it's not there's the phases of grief or whatever they call that. And yes, there are different emotions that show up. And what I realized through this year of just so much, like, it was like farcical almost. It really was crazy. Is how closely linked grief is to joy. And we also are not taught how to talk about those negative emotions, right? Just put on a happy face. And I was totally guilty of that. I've done that so many times in my life. Just, with all the traumas I've experienced, like, what else can I do? I just got to keep on moving, just got to keep on smiling and laughing through it. And that is part of my process, is laughter, for sure. And I realized, though, that by putting on the blinders, and burying those anger, grief, sadness, all that does is push them into a place where they're gonna explode at another time, probably an inopportune time. Not that there's ever a really good time to have those emotions, but if we can more easily accept them as they show up, right? Like, I've cried at the Publix grocery store, at the grocery store deli counter. I After my dad, the morning after my dad died, I found out that he died. I sat in the Chick-fil-A talking to the HR director at his company, sobbing. I was in the Walmart aisle crying, talking to somebody else, and just, that's what it is. That's when the emotions were coming, and that's when I was going to let them through, because the more we shove them aside, one, the worse they're going to get. So if we can allow those emotions to show up when they're ready to show up, instead of shoving them aside, they can be processed so much more quickly and do way less damage. if we try to squish them or hide them or ignore them.
Yeah.
And so by just being open to allowing them to show up helped the grief process be so much more smooth. And now there were times that I snapped my mom or my brother or family or friends who I was close to, and, for sure that all those emotions showed up. And I realized with that much death just hitting me over and over and over again, that what a gift it is to live, to be able to support my aunt in that way, to be there with her, to surround her with love and laughter for those 8 days and be by her side holding her hand when she took her last breath. That is such a gift for her as well as for me. And when you've got just that much death, which I know so many of us have been experiencing in a heightened way these last few years, especially, it's a beautiful life is a beautiful gift. And so if we can allow ourselves the space to let those emotions show up whenever they show up, and just it sounds kind of funny, but just having a conversation with those emotions, okay, what is this coming from? Where is this stemming from? What is the source of this? Because I drove by two geese on the highway the day that I found out the last person who died. And I was on my way to a date. I'm single. I was on my way to a date with a new guy. And I drive by these geese on 95 and immediately started crying. I was like, what? My makeup? Like, what's happening? Where is this coming from? And I just, asked some questions. All right. Hello, sadness. Hello, tears. Where are you coming from? What is this about? And I realized that the person who had died helped me through after my ex physically assaulted me and spent 3 months in jail. She was one of the people who literally put hands on me. She was a chiropractor and helped to put my body back in alignment. And she was a big impact in my life, even though we weren't close friends anymore. We still had that connection. And the story of the geese is when they're hurt, or tired or injured, flock mates will fly down with them until they die or heal, and then they join another flock. Well, one was dead in these two geese, and the other one was looking up to the sky, and I just instantly cried. Like, she was there for, oh, I'm gonna cry now. She was there for me in a time, she helped me come back to life. And but if I didn't allow myself, if I just was like, oh, stop crying, I'm going to this date, just right, which is what we commonly do, I wouldn't have figured out, how important that trigger and that memory to honor our friendship needed to be right in that moment. And I got to the date and I told him, like, it was 20 minutes and I was fine. And I got to the date and he's like, are you okay? I was a little red. And I said, yeah, it happened. And I cried on the way here, and he gave me a big hug, and we've been friends ever since. It just 20 minutes versus, putting it aside, ignoring it, really not understanding the source of it. I would not have been able to honor our friendship and the importance of it, and really acknowledging the importance of our friendship. And it can take 20 minutes, to get to that. But we have to be open to allowing those emotions to show up, having a conversation with them as if, picture them sitting across the table from you going, all right, what are you here for? What do I need from this? Because they are showing up for a reason. We need them. We need all the spectrum of the emotions.
Yeah.
We can't just take all the good ones and ignore all the bad ones. Because the bad ones, negative ones, they lead to the good ones, and appreciating the sadness and the relationships that we've had with the people who we're grieving over. That's what leads to the joy. That's what leads to making the choice to really live and honor the relationship, honor the friendship, honor the parent, honor the child, whoever it is, and just respecting and honoring their life by choosing to then live in a beautiful way. That's been my grief adventure.
That was really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sitting here like,
Yeah.
I'm curious because it's easy for us to talk about this, and obviously doing this work is not curing a show and being like, I'm perfect, I'm going to go do this.
Right.
I know in my work when I'm helping people get that emotional vocabulary and really be able to access some of that, there's kind of baby steps for someone who's listening to this and is maybe feeling a bit daunted, like I'm not ready to pull over on the side of the road and cry about my friend's death yet.
Right.
Do you have like a nice baby step or something they can start practicing that would help them build up to that?
That is a great question. So some of the easy ways to start are just make sure you're in a safe place. And I mean, me driving actually ends up being a place I do cry a lot, which is very weird. It's kind of meditative, that trip, and I love road trips. So that is a place where some of the things kind of filter in for me. But just really scheduling it in. If you are not so sure about how to allow it to show up whenever it shows up, then schedule it in. Watch a movie. And this was one that sometimes when I was really resistant to processing the anger or sadness or grief in, years ago, I would watch a movie that would trigger those emotions.
Yeah.
And so you're safe in your home, and you can do it in the privacy of your home if you don't want to do it around your family, or put yourself in your bedroom or whatever. And just kind of schedule it that way, because your body needs to get it out. And if you don't, it's gonna show up at the Publix deli counter, like the grocery store deli counter, or the restaurant, or driving and seeing these two geese on the side of the road. And I let it show up whenever, because I've dealt with it enough. But yeah, kind of scheduling it in is a really great way to start. I would also invite people to start journaling, recording how they're feeling. Sometimes just the writing of it helps get it out of your body, and it helps you to understand a little bit more about what's happening. We may not really be able to kind of think about it or process it in our heads, but once we start to write it out, one, that can be a good trigger to get the emotions out and started. And it can also help you realize, like, wow, I didn't even think about that memory, right? About that person, or that connection to these geese. Of course, that's why I cried about my friend, because of this connection, right? But when we write about it, one, it really helps it get it out of our body. Pen to paper is magic, 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 magic. So yeah, just put allow yourself to put it in your schedule. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it can work. And then you at least know that you're safe and comfortable and in the privacy of your own safe space, whatever that is for you. So I'd say that'd be a good baby step to start.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's it's fantastic, because it is taking away some of the dauntingness and the fear that people will judge you. And that relates to another one for me. I'm really curious. So I would say in our society, the safe emotion, as it were, is anger. And especially for men, are taught that's the only emotion that's okay to display. It's a very protective thing. I don't know if you ever heard about the anger iceberg. That's one you work a lot with. Like, you think of an iceberg, we're only like a little bits above the surface of the water. And so here's anger. That's what everyone sees. And then all the stuff is below it.
Right, right.
And my experience with a lot of people is that they've never done the dive to see that. And it's quite daunting, because they're going to be doing this journaling or watching a movie and they're like, well, I'm mad.
Right. Yep.
Do you ever work with that? And what does that look like? Or how do you encourage people to kind of take that step beyond
going beyond mad?
Yeah.
There actually is something that I learned called the anger prescription. And it really helped me because anger was not an easy emotion for me. it's not one that I have naturally gravitated toward, and it's one that I think women are kind of not allowed to do. Men are encouraged to do it, and women are like, that's not ladylike. You can't be angry, don't show rage.
Yeah.
So the anger prescription actually is basically you throw an adult temper tantrum. And it's just lay down on your bed, face up, not face down. You want to be in a power position. And so soft and squishy, right? Lots of pillows. You're on the soft bed and just scream it out. Flail the arms, kick the legs, warn the family that you're going to be doing this if you've got family in the house, and just scream it out. And to me, that was more powerful than, some people will scream into a towel or a pillow or something like that. And that again, to me, is stifling it, right? So just I'm just getting it out. So throwing that temper tantrum, and it can, 30 seconds really is about all that it will take of doing that, maybe a minute, and the tears will start. So allowing yourself to, your physical body to process that anger, right? It's getting that out. Just, scream, curse, yell, whatever comes out. You can picture, I've pictured the people I'm angry at, right? My abuser, the ex-boyfriend, the fear, whatever it is, I'll picture that person. So it gives me kind of a target to yell at.
Yeah.
And just flail around. And then it may take a couple times depending, where you are in your process and your journey. But pretty quickly into it, the tears are going to start coming. And so that's a really great physical way of, one, getting the anger out, but also allowing you to go beyond that, which is where the grief and sadness are.
Wow. I've not heard of that exercise before. That's really interesting. I'm gonna sit with that and think about it for a bit.
It's awesome. It really is powerful.
Yeah. So you have so many questions. Is there anything that you would like that I haven't asked that you really want to share with people about, starting this journey, supporting yourself?
I think that just starting a conversation, being able to just have some compassion for other people. I mean, even with going through, losing my dad or losing my stepfather died in 2009, or grandparents, or we've all experienced death at some form. But the grief isn't just about death. Ending a chapter, right? We're starting a new school year. Seniors graduating high school and going into college. There's something to grieve over. That life is done. That high school life that they experienced is over. No matter how great it was or how not great it was, that chapter is over. And so that person who experienced those things is growing into a new person, a college, a work person, getting married, whatever it is they're choosing. So grieving the person who we used to be is also grief, and allowing for that sadness. And so just to have a conversation, and maybe not even a conversation, but just being open to understanding that people are going through things. We're all going through things, and let me just hold space. Let me just be here. That me too, those are powerful words, whether it's related to trauma or to, that transition is hard. And just to be able to sit with someone and be there if they want to talk, great. If you want to laugh, call me. If you want, and just checking up on people. So I think just opening the space to better understanding, more compassion for ourselves and for everybody. We're all going through stuff. We all got stuff, right? No matter whether it's sexual trauma or domestic violence or graduating from high school, stuff. And so I think just being able to have more compassion, be gentle with ourselves and understanding what other people, may not be comfortable expressing their grief or sadness. And that's okay too. That, we don't want to force anybody to do anything, but just, opening that conversation of, hey, I'm here. I don't really, even if just, I don't know what to say to you right now, but I love you and here to support you, and just I don't really know what you're going through. Even if you don't know what you're going through, saying that is better than, oh, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, all those stupid cliches we have about sadness or, unhappy emotions. Just, I really don't know what to say right now, and my heart is aching for you. Sometimes that is enough. And that may be enough for them to open up and say, yeah, it really sucks right now. Thank you for being willing to see that it sucks right now for me. Yeah. So I think just being open to being okay with not being okay.
No, I mean, I love that. And I specifically like that you mentioned, because we did talk about grief being a lot around death for this, but the idea that, all change involves loss.
Right.
And all loss is something that you may need to grieve. Like as a society, we're not good at recognizing those transitions always.
Right.
So I really love that you put that out there. This is a fantastic piece. I can't believe we're already out of time. But if people are curious and they want to know a little bit more, what's the best way to contact you?
Social media is probably the best way. The soul coaching has really been a kind of passion project, and word of mouth and referrals. And when it's right for people, I know when they're ready to do the kind of work that I can help them with, they show up. So I'm not really putting a ton of advertising necessarily out about it. I'm just trusting the process, and I'm still in my grieving process. I'm not, there's only so much energy I have to share. And I've stayed through all of this. Continued working with my clients, and just enjoyed seeing their process and their growth. So social media. So you can find me on Instagram is probably the most common, Christina M. Stuart. And I know you're going to post the links and stuff. So that's the best way. And I would love to chat, direct message me. We can have a conversation. I've made some really amazing connections through this process. And I would love to support and just listen, hearing people's stories. I love seeing their successes, and I love supporting them as they're going through their challenges. So yeah, I would love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, like you said, those are in the description. So please go check it out. Connect with Christina if you're interested at all. And I just want to thank you so much for being on the show. That was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you. And it's a fabulous conversation. Thank you for being open to just having the conversation. So that's going to change
I love
the
these
world.
conversations. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope this has been helpful to you. We'll see you next week. And remember,